Part 1. For 200 years, humanity had lived inside a bubble. Not a real bubble made of glass or plastic, but an invisible wall of energy that wrapped around the whole solar system like a cage. The Galactic Concordance Council, the group of older, powerful alien species who watched over the galaxy, had built it long ago. They called it the Chamber. To them, it was not a prison. It was protection. Protection for the rest of the galaxy from humans. The Council believed humans were too dangerous, too emotional, too quick to fight. They pointed to Earth's past, the wars over water, oil, land, and ideas. The bombs that scorched cities, the machines that turned against their makers. They are not ready, the Council had decided. Not yet. Maybe not ever. So they locked the door. No human ship could leave past Neptune's orbit. No alien ship could enter without heavy inspection. The chamber hummed silently in the void, powered by technology humans did not understand and were not allowed to study. From the outside, it looked like empty space. But if a ship tried to cross it, the field would push it back, or worse, tear it apart. Inside this bubble, life went on. Cities grew on Mars. Factories spun asteroids into metal on Ceres. Children were born on orbital stations who had never seen Earth but still called it home. Most people accepted the chamber as just part of life, like gravity or nightfall. They were told it kept them safe. That the galaxy beyond was chaotic, full of predators and plagues. Better to stay inside. But not everyone believed that. On Luna Station, a quiet research outpost orbiting the moon, a young engineer named Daniel Carter spent his nights watching the edge of the system. Not because he was supposed to, but because he couldn't sleep. He'd lost his younger sister during the last food riots on Europa, and silence made him restless. So he watched the monitors, the long-range sensors, the faint energy readings from the outer rim. One night something flickered. It was small, barely noticeable. A tiny ripple in the chamber's field near the Kuiper belt, like a stone dropped in still water. Daniel blinked, thinking his eyes were playing tricks. He checked the logs. Nothing unusual was recorded. The system showed green across the board. But he had seen it. A distortion. A weakness. He reported it to his supervisor, a tired man named Harris who had worked on Luna Station for 30 years. Harris sighed, rubbed his temples, and said, "Carter, you're seeing ghosts again. The chamber doesn't flicker. It's perfect. It's been stable for 2 centuries. But Daniel didn't let it go. He started running his own scans during off hours. He borrowed old sensor logs from decommissioned satellites. He compared energy patterns, wave frequencies, magnetic shifts, and slowly a picture formed. The chamber wasn't perfect. It was aging. And in one narrow corridor near Pluto's old orbit, it was thinning. He tried to tell others. A technician named Rosa listened for a while, then shook her head. Even if it's true, what can we do? The Council controls everything. We're not allowed to touch the field, not even to study it. But Daniel kept watching, night after night. Alone in the dim glow of his console, he wasn't trying to break the rules. He just wanted to understand. And then one cold Tuesday in March it happened. The ripple returned. Stronger this time. And it didn't fade. Daniel's heart pounded as he watched the data stream. The energy signature dipped sharply, then held. For 3 full minutes, the field weakened to less than 10% of its normal strength. Long enough for a small, fast ship to slip through. He held his breath. He expected alarms. Emergency broadcasts. Council enforcers dropping out of warp space. But nothing happened. The system stayed quiet. The logs auto-corrected themselves, smoothing over the anomaly like it never existed. That's when Daniel realized the chamber wasn't just failing. It was being ignored. Someone somewhere knew. And they were letting it happen. He didn't sleep that night. Or the next. He replayed the footage over and over, zoomed in, enhanced the signal, and then he saw it. A tiny blip moving fast, vanishing into the dark just as the field began to rebuild. A ship. Human-made. No transponder. No ID, just a shadow against the stars. Daniel didn't know who had flown it, but he knew what it meant. Someone had left. Not by accident. On purpose. The thought sent a chill through him, not of fear, but of wonder. For 200 years, humanity had been told they were not ready, that they needed to be watched, controlled, kept safe from themselves and the galaxy. But now someone had stepped out anyway, and the galaxy hadn't ended. In fact, it had stayed silent. Daniel sat back in his chair, Staring out the viewport at the distant curve of the moon, Earth glowed blue in the distance, wrapped in clouds and history. He thought of his sister, of all the people who had lived and died inside this bubble, never knowing what lay beyond. He didn't know what would happen next. But for the first time in his life, he felt something he hadn't felt since he was a child. Hope, because if one ship could leave, maybe others could too. And maybe, just maybe, the chamber wasn't a wall anymore. Maybe it was a door, and someone had finally opened it. Part 2. The ship that slipped through the chamber was small, no bigger than a cargo hauler, with patched-up hull plating and engines that hummed like an old coffee grinder. Its pilot was a woman named Lena Ortiz. She had spent the last 7 years building it in secret inside a derelict mining station near Saturn's rings. No one knew she was there. Not her neighbors on Titan. Not the Concordance patrols. Not even her own brother, who thought she'd died in a fuel explosion years ago. Lena hadn't died. She'd disappeared on purpose. She'd watched the chamber, her whole life just like everyone else, but she never believed the stories about the galaxy being too dangerous. She believed the real danger was staying still, staying quiet, letting someone else decide what humanity could or couldn't do. She studied old alien tech, scavenged from crashed drones, abandoned probes, and black market data chips. She taught herself how their energy fields worked, how their navigation systems bent space, how their sensors saw through darkness. She didn't have a team. She didn't have permission. She just had time, anger, and a stubborn will that refused to accept walls. When Daniel Carter saw the ripple in the chamber, Lena was already waiting. She'd calculated the weak point down to the second. She knew the field cycled every 48 hours, and for exactly 187 seconds, a narrow path opened near the edge of the Oort cloud. It wasn't a flaw. It was a design feature, a pressure valve the Council never thought anyone would find. But Lena found it, and she used it. Her ship, the Dawn Chaser, shot through the gap like a whisper. One moment it was inside the solar system. The next, it was in open space. Real, unfiltered, unguarded space. Stars stretched in every direction, brighter than she'd ever seen them through Earth's atmosphere or Luna's filters. No alarms sounded. No warships appeared. Just silence, vast and deep. She didn't cheer. She didn't cry. She just checked her systems, adjusted her course, and whispered, "Okay. Now what?" Back inside the chamber, panic spread slowly at first. A Concordance Sentinel drone floating near Neptune recorded the breach. It sent a priority alert to the Council Nexus, a massive ring-shaped station orbiting a dead star in the Andromeda Arm. The message was simple. Unauthorized vessel exited Sol system. Human origin, no weapons detected, no communication attempted. At first, the Council thought it was a glitch. Humans hadn't left their system in generations. Their tech was outdated. Their ships couldn't survive deep space. But when 3 more drones confirmed the same data, the truth settled in like cold fog. They gathered in the Grand Conclave Hall, a dome of living crystal that shifted color with the mood of its speakers. The Virith delegates stood tall and still, their silver skin gleaming. The Cullen hunched low, their many eyes blinking in unison. Even the silent Zenth, who rarely spoke, turned their smooth, featureless faces toward the center. "She flew alone," said Councillor Vrel, his voice like wind through stone. "No fleet, no escort, just one ship, one human. And she did not attack," added Elder Zanara of the Virith, her tone thoughtful. "She did not broadcast threats. She simply left." That was what confused them most. In all their records, species that broke containment did so with violence. They declared war. They demanded freedom with guns. But this human, she vanished into the dark without a word. Meanwhile, Lena wasn't hiding. She wasn't running. She plotted a course for the nearest neutral zone, a trading post called Vex's Hollow, run by a loose alliance of merchants, scavengers, and exiles. It wasn't part of the Concordance. No rules, no questions. perfect for someone who didn't exist. The journey took 12 days. She rationed her food, recycled her water, and talked to her ship's AI like it was a friend. She named it Milo. It didn't answer, but it kept the oxygen flowing. When she arrived at Vex's Hollow, she docked quietly at Bay 7, the farthest from the main hub. She wore a plain gray jumpsuit, no insignia, no Earth symbols, just a human woman with tired eyes and steady hands. The station's overseer, a reptilian trader named Kor, eyed her suspiciously. "Humans aren't allowed here," he said, his voice raspy. "I'm not from anywhere," Lena replied, "just passing through." Kor sniffed the air. "You smell like ozone and old metal. You've been in deep vacuum too long." "Maybe," she said. "But I've got credits, real ones, from before the chamber." She showed him a data chip with pre-quarantine Earth currency, gold-backed digital tokens the Concordance had outlawed, but the black market still valued. Kor's eyes widened. He nodded slowly and stepped aside. Inside the station, word spread fast. A human had arrived, not a prisoner, not a diplomat, just a traveler. Others came to stare, some curious, some afraid. A young Colon mechanic offered to check her engine for free. An old Virith poet asked if she carried stories from Earth. Lena didn't boast. She didn't lie. She answered questions simply. Yes, Earth still had oceans. Yes, people still painted and sang. No, we didn't forget the stars. News of her reached the Concordance within hours. Not through official channels, but through whispers in the dark, traitors, spies, dreamers. By the time the Council held its next session, half the galaxy knew a human had walked among them without causing harm. Back on Earth, people heard the rumors too. Not from broadcasts, those were tightly controlled, but from encrypted messages, hidden forms, coded songs. "She made it," someone wrote. "She's out there." In Chicago, a retired teacher named Paul Dawson read the message twice, then smiled for the first time in years. In Mumbai, a pilot named Maya Singh began sketching ship modifications on napkins. On Titan, a mechanic named Ryan Cole started testing old engines in his garage. Lena didn't know it yet, but her quiet exit had lit a fuse. The Concordance debated what to do. Some wanted to hunt her down. Others wanted to seal the chamber tighter. But Elder Zainara spoke again, her voice calm. "If we chase her, we make her a martyr. If we ignore her, we admit we cannot control what we caged. Either way, we lose." Counselor Vrel stared at the star map showing Lena's last known position. "Then what do we do?" Zainara looked at the empty space beyond Sol. "We watch, and we wonder." Because for the first time, the Council wasn't sure who was really in the cage. And Lena Ortiz, sipping bitter tea in a dim corner of Vex's Hollow, didn't care what they thought. She had stars ahead, fuel in her tanks, and a whole galaxy to see. She wasn't coming back, and she wasn't alone for long. Part 3. Lena Ortiz's quiet escape did not stay quiet for long. Within weeks, her name was whispered in shipyards on Mars, in underground labs beneath Europa's ice, and in crowded apartments on Earth where people still kept star charts on their walls. She had done what no one thought possible. Walked out of the chamber without permission, without violence, and without looking back. And that simple act changed everything. It started small. A cargo pilot in the asteroid belt rerouted his ship during a routine scan, testing the edge of the field near where Lena had passed. He found nothing, just empty space. But the next night he tried again. And the night after that, on the 7th try, his sensors caught the same ripple Daniel Carter had seen. He didn't hesitate. He pushed the throttle forward and vanished into the dark. Then came others. A medical transport from Ganymede carrying no patients, just spare parts and a crew of 5 who'd spent years planning this. A research vessel from Venus, its crew claiming they were chasing a solar anomaly. A family of 4 from Luna, packed into a modified shuttle with nothing but seeds, books, and a dog named Scout. None of them fired a shot. None of them declared war. They just left. The Concordance tried to stop them. Patrol drones swept the outer rim. Warning buoys flashed red. But the chamber was old, and the humans had learned its rhythm. They timed their exits like dancers, slipping through during the brief moments the field weakened. Some ships were caught, some were destroyed, but enough got through. Inside the solar system, a quiet movement grew, not with speeches or flags, but with shared files, hidden workshops, and coded messages passed hand to hand. People weren't trying to overthrow the council, they just wanted to leave. In Chicago, Paul Dawson, a retired astrophysicist with thinning hair and thick glasses, became a quiet leader. He didn't stand on stages. He sat at his kitchen table, typing messages into old networks that the Concordance thought were dead. He mapped safe routes, listed weak points in the chamber, and warned travelers about patrol patterns. His kitchen became a hub. Neighbors dropped by with spare parts, fuel cells, or just a thermos of coffee and a question, "Is it true? Can we really go?" Paul always answered the same way. "If one can, then so can we." In Mumbai, Maya Singh worked as a freighter pilot for the Martian Supply Guild. By day, she hauled oxygen tanks and machine parts between colonies. By night, she met with other pilots in abandoned hangars, swapping engine schematics and star charts. She taught them how to mask their heat signatures, how to fly silent, how to disappear. She didn't call it rebellion. She called it going home, even though none of them had ever seen the galaxy beyond. On Titan, Ryan Cole ran a repair shop that looked like any other. But behind a false wall in his garage, he stored engines rebuilt from scrap, engines powerful enough to punch through deep space. He didn't charge money. He asked only for a promise: when you leave, don't look back. And if you find others out there, tell them we're coming. The Concordance watched it all unfold with growing unease. Their sensors lit up with unauthorized launches. Their patrols returned with empty reports. Their once perfect control was cracking, not from force, but from quiet determination. Council meetings grew tense. The Cullen demanded immediate action: block the weak points, destroy all outbound ships, punish Earth. But the Virith hesitated. Elder Zanera pointed to the data. Not one human ship had attacked anything. Not one had threatened a Concordance world. They were leaving, not invading. "They are not our enemies," she said. "They are our guests who finally found the door. But fear is louder than logic." Councillor Vrel argued that even peaceful departure was dangerous. If they spread, they will change the balance. They will bring chaos. Their emotions, their speed, their unpredictability. It will infect everything. Yet for every ship the Concordance destroyed, 2 more appeared. Humans weren't using warships. They were using tugs, freighters, school shuttles, anything that could fly. They patched hulls with tape and hope. They navigated by memory and instinct, and they kept going. Back on Luna Station, Daniel Carter watched the exodus from his console. He didn't join them, not yet, but he helped. He sent encrypted data bursts to departing ships, warning them of drone patrols. He rerouted sensor logs to hide their paths. He became a ghost in the system, helping others escape the cage he still lived in. One night, a message came through, not from a ship, but from Earth. It was short, just 3 words. "Thank you, Daniel." He didn't know who sent it, but he knew what it meant. He wasn't alone anymore. The movement had no name, no flag, no leader. It was just people, ordinary people, choosing freedom over fear. They didn't hate the council. They didn't even think about them much. They were too busy building, planning, dreaming, and the galaxy began to notice. At Vex's Hollow, more humans arrived each week. Some stayed. Some refueled and left for deeper space. Traders who once avoided humans now sought them out, offering star maps for Earth music, navigation crystals for Martian bread. Humans weren't conquerors. They were neighbors. The Concordance could not understand it. In their history, freedom was taken with blood. But humans were taking it with silence, with courage, with stubborn hope. And the more they left, the weaker the chamber became, not just in power, but in meaning. It was no longer a wall. It was a memory. Paul Dawson stood on his rooftop one evening looking up at the stars. He was old. He might never leave Earth, but he smiled anyway. Because out there, somewhere, a young pilot named Maya was flying past Jupiter. Ryan Cole's engines were humming in the void. And Lena Ortiz was still out there showing the way. Humanity wasn't asking for permission anymore, it was simply gone. Part 4. The Concordance Council had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They had faced rebellions, plagues, dying stars, and wars that burned whole systems to ash. But nothing had shaken them like this. Humans leaving quietly, without anger, without demands, without even looking back. It was not an attack. It was an absence. And that absence grew louder every day. At first, the council tried to ignore it. They told themselves it was a few rogue ships, a temporary glitch. But as more humans slipped through the chamber, as their presence spread to neutral stations and forgotten corners of space, denial became impossible. The truth sat in the center of the grand conclave hall like a stone in still water. Humanity was no longer contained. Emergency sessions became routine. The Colin delegates paced in tight circles, their claws clicking against the floor. The Virith stood motionless, but their silver skin darkened with worry. Even the silent Zenth shifted their smooth bodies in agitation. The question was no longer if they should act, but how. Some called for force. Seal the chamber permanently, growled Councillor Vrel. Flood the weak points with null energy. Let any ship that tries to cross be erased. Others feared the cost. If we destroy them, said a young Colin advisor, we become the monsters they always feared we were. Elder Zynara remained calm. She had studied human history in secret. Long before the Exodus began, she knew their art, their music, their strange habit of planting trees and cities just to watch them grow. They are not like us, she said. They do not seek power. They seek meaning, and we have given them none. The debate raged for days. Meanwhile, out in the galaxy, humans kept moving. They did not build armies. They built connections. At Vex's Hollow, a human named Maya Singh traded Martian wheat for navigation crystals. On the ice moon of Krell 9, a former Titan mechanic named Ryan Cole fixed a broken water purifier for a group of nomadic traders. And in return, they gave him a star chart to a safe zone near the Orion Nebula. Humans offered what they had: stories, seeds, songs, tools. They asked for little in return, just a chance to exist. And slowly the galaxy began to accept them. This was what terrified the Council most. Not violence, but acceptance. Species that had once feared humans now welcomed them. The Drellian weavers sent woven star maps to Earthborn children. The Gal merchants stocked Earth coffee in their stalls. Even old enemies of the Concordance, those who had long resented its control, saw humanity as proof that the Council was not all-powerful. Back inside the chamber, life changed too. People no longer whispered about leaving, they planned it openly. Schools taught navigation alongside math. Factories built ships under the guise of emergency transports. Families saved credits not for vacations, but for passage beyond Neptune. Paul Dawson in Chicago stopped hiding his work. He broadcast simple lessons on public channels: how to read star charts, how to recycle air, how to find water in asteroids. The Concordance tried to shut him down, but his messages spread faster than they could delete them. He became a quiet legend, the old man who taught the stars. The Council sent envoys to Earth demanding answers. They met with human leaders, politicians, scientists, colony governors. But no one claimed to be in charge of the Exodus. "We're not stopping them," said the head of the Mars Council. "We're not helping them either. They're just going." And that was the hardest truth for the Concordance to swallow. Humanity wasn't following orders. They weren't obeying a plan. They were acting on their own. Millions of individuals making the same choice one by one. Councillor Tail of the Virith stood before the full assembly one evening, his voice low but firm. "We built the chamber to protect the galaxy from chaos. But what if the chaos was never in them? What if it was in us? In our fear, our need to control, our belief that we alone know what is right?" Silence filled the hall. No one answered because deep down they all knew. The chamber had never been about protecting the galaxy. It had been about controlling humanity. And now that control was gone. Still, some refused to accept it. A faction of hardliners led by Vrel pushed for drastic action. They proposed a final solution, not just sealing the chamber, but collapsing it inward, turning it into a weapon that would trap all humans forever inside a shrinking bubble of space. It would not kill them, they claimed, but it would end the Exodus. Inara opposed it fiercely. That is not protection. That is punishment. And punishment for what? For wanting to be free? The vote was close. But in the end, reason held. The weapon plan was rejected. Not because the Council trusted humanity, but because they feared what the galaxy would think if they acted like jailers. Instead, they chose to watch. To wait. to hope the humans would fail on their own. But out in the void, humans were not failing. They were thriving. A human ship reached the ruins of an ancient station near Proxima Centauri and turned it into a school. Another group planted earth trees on a barren moon, just to see if they would grow. Lena Ortiz, now far beyond Vex's Hollow, sent a single message back through a relay drone. The stars are kinder than we were told. The message spread like wind through dry grass. And the Council, for the first time in its long history, felt something unfamiliar, not anger, not pride, but doubt. Doubt that they had been right. Doubt that they were wise. Doubt that they were needed. Because while they debated in crystal halls, humanity was already building a new life among the stars, not with conquest, but with kindness, with curiosity, with quiet courage. And the galaxy was listening. Part 5 of 10 years passed. The chamber still hung around the solar system, but it was no longer a wall. It was a relic, a ghost. Ships came and went through its thinning field like birds through an open window. The Concordance left it in place not because it worked, but because tearing it down would mean admitting they had been wrong. And that was a truth too heavy to carry. Humanity did not flood the galaxy with warships or grand declarations. They spread slowly like seeds on the wind. Some settled on quiet moons. Others traveled in nomadic fleets trading stories and spare parts. A few, like Lena Ortiz, vanished into the deep dark, chasing rumors of ancient ruins or uncharted nebulae. But wherever they went, they left something behind, not weapons, but gardens, schools, music, and open hands. The galaxy changed because of them. Not all at once, but in small ways. At the trade hub of Vex's Hollow, human children played with Colin Young, teaching them Earth games with stones and string. On the desert world of Sarnak 4, a retired Earth engineer helped rebuild a water system using old Martian designs. In the libraries of the Vareth, scholars translated human poetry, marveling at how much feeling could fit in so few words. The Concordance watched it all from a distance. They did not welcome humanity, but they did not stop them either. Fear had turned into something quieter. Respect, perhaps, or at least confusion. How could a species so young, so emotional, so messy, bring calm where others brought conflict? Inside the solar system, life went on too. Earth healed. Mars bloomed. The old fear of the outside faded, replaced by a quiet pride. People still remembered the chamber, but they no longer feared it. Children grew up hearing stories of the first who left, not as rebels, but as pioneers. Daniel Carter never left Luna Station. He grew older, his hair turned gray and his hands shook a little. But he still watched the stars every night. Now his console didn't show warnings or barriers. It showed ship logs, hundreds of them coming and going. Some messages were for him. Simple ones. Made it to Orion, thanks. Or planted your seeds. They grew. He never replied. He didn't need to. He knew. Paul Dawson passed away peacefully in his Chicago home at the age of 84. His funeral was small, but his lessons lived on. Every human ship that left Sol carried a copy of his star guide, printed on recycled paper, tucked into a drawer or taped to a console. He had never flown among the stars, but he had taught others how to find them. Maya Singh became a captain of a small transport fleet that carried supplies between human outposts. She never wore a uniform, just a faded jacket with a patch of Earth's ocean stitched on the shoulder. Ryan Cole opened a repair station near the Helix Nebula, where he fixed engines for anyone who needed help, human or not. He charged in stories, not credits, and Lena Ortiz? No one knew where she was. Some said she reached the edge of known space. Others claimed she found a world where the sky turned gold at sunset. But her ship, the Dawn Chaser, was seen once more, years later, docking at a new human colony near the Orion Spur. She stepped out, older, tired, but smiling. She carried a box of earth soil and a single apple seed. She planted it under a foreign sun and walked away without a word. The Concordance never invited humanity to join their council, but they stopped calling them contained. In official records, humans were now listed as independent observers. It wasn't equality, but it was a start. The real change happened in the silence between species. When a Colin trader shared a meal with a human pilot, when a Virith child asked an Earth teacher how to draw a tree, when a Zenth, those silent, faceless beings, left a smooth stone on the doorstep of a human clinic just to say thank you. No one declared peace. No treaties were signed. It simply happened like grass growing through cracks in stone. Back on Luna Station, Daniel stood at his old observation deck one last time. Jupiter glowed in the distance, its storms swirling like ancient dreams. A human freighter drifted past, its hull painted with constellations only Earth knew. Orion, Cassiopeia, Ursa Major. The ship didn't fly fast. It didn't hide. It just moved forward calm and sure. Daniel smiled. Not because humanity had won, but because they had chosen to be kind when they could have been angry. To build when they could have burned. To leave not to escape but to belong somewhere new. The council still sat in their crystal hall debating the future. But the future was already here. It was in the hands of ordinary people, teachers, pilots, mechanics, gardeners, who believed the stars were not for the powerful, but for everyone. And the fear that once ruled the galaxy? It did not vanish, but it shrank, because fear cannot grow where hope is planted. Humanity had never asked to rule the stars. They only asked to walk among them, and in doing so they showed the oldest species in the galaxy something they had long forgotten, that freedom is not taken, it is given, quietly, by those who dare to leave the door open for others. Daniel turned off the console. The screen went dark. Outside the stars burned on endless and bright.